Hi, I'm Dempsey Pawai, and this week I'm reviewing Now, before we start off, as always, I just want to take a quick second to remind you guys to make sure you hit that like button if you like today's video, and if you're new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button as well for more new movie-related content weekly. But, without further ado, let's jump into today's film. Come True was directed by Anthony Scott Burns and stars Julia Sarah Stone as a young woman who signs up for a sleep study after experiencing intense nightmares. However, after the scientists conducting it go too far, the study turns into a new nightmare all its own. Now, without spoiling anything else, that is the best way I can describe this film. And even though it may sound and kind of look like a mix between Inception and A Nightmare on Elm Street, trust me when I say that it is very much its own thing. This film is very unique. And another thing I think you should know prior to going into it is that even though it's marketed as a horror film, it's not. And even though it does have some sci-fi elements, it's not a sci-fi film either. It is truly a very literal psychological thriller. Honestly, I think the best way to go into this film is to know as little about it as possible. I mean, it was more rewarding for me that way anyway. And because of that, I promise that this review will be 100% spoiler-free. Most of my reviews are spoiler-free anyway, but this one especially, I promise I will not ruin anything, because I do believe that this is an experience that is meant to be had firsthand. That being said, I think the best place to continue with this review is to tell you flat out that I didn't feel this film at first. The film is a total slow burn. Told in 3 parts, each part is kind of its own slow burn too. By the end of the second part though, it's really hard not to be fully invested in what's happening. And throughout the third part, you're kind of left on the edge of your seat, all until that bombshell ending. More on that later. In terms of direction, I think Anthony Scott Burns really knocks it out of the park here. Somehow, the film is both very abstract, but also very minimalistic, and I just found it all to be incredibly aesthetically pleasing. The film is also really beautiful. I really love the cinematography, so much so that I found myself struggling to look away during some of the nightmare sequences. And that's another thing that I really liked about this film, that it's really good at establishing just, you know, that feeling of dread and just overall terror, without relying on like jump scares or some of the other typical tropes that you would expect to see in horror films, or, you know, films like this. Because, you know, once again, this isn't really a horror film. There are things that our characters only ever see out of focus or in their peripherals, but trust me when I say that they will still haunt you, because the imagery is so effective in this film. I also like the lead, Julia Sarah Stone's performance. She is essentially a one-woman show in this. I think 90% of this film, the audience is either with her or experiences things through her. And she seriously gave me some Sissy Spacek vibes here from Carrie. Not only in the way that at first she's kind of blissfully unaware of what's happening, but also in the way that she eventually becomes so tormented by something that she cannot control. And that's all I'm going to say on that, because once again, I do not want to spoil anything. Now, I also really dug the film's music, and I think that regardless of whether you love or hate this film, you have to admit that the music is easily one of its best components. Anthony Scott Burns, in addition to being a director, is also a musician, and he worked very hard on this soundtrack, but he didn't work on it alone. He worked alongside Electric Youth. And if you're wondering where you think you've heard that name from before, it's because they're the exact same duo that worked on the song at the end of Drive. We all know what I'm talking about. They contributed heavily to this film's soundtrack, and as if it wasn't already hard to figure out what the hell was going to happen next, their sound specifically amplifies the film's ominous tone. All that said, this film wasn't without its flaws. To me, there were just a lot of interesting ideas that were never fully realized. This film goes to 100 when it very clearly could have gone to 1,000. And while we don't get answers to everything in this film, there were some pretty big things that I wish we would have gotten answers for. More specifically, and trust me, I'm still not going into spoilers here, very early on it's made clear that our protagonist has a very bad relationship with her mother. Or at least it seems that way. She's a runaway when we meet her. In fact, for the entire film, she's a runaway. But it's never explained why. Secondly, And this one I'm on the fence about, but I mean, I have to talk about it because, as you'll see in the marketing material, probably in the thumbnail for this video, throughout the film, things happen to our main character's eyes, but it's really never explained why. Now, as I kind of hinted at earlier, I don't think that this film is for everyone. Some will find it too slow, some will hate it because of the ending, because that ending is everything. Now, there's a 100% chance I could be wrong about this, but I do feel like this film is going to go on to become a cult classic. Not because it's too crazy or because it's campy, but because of all the different interpretations that I think people are bound to take away from it. And that's why I recommend that you go into this the same way that you should probably go to bed every night, with an open mind. And for that, I'm going to give this film 3.5 stars.
Body tries to reject death in dreams. You wake up.
What if you're wrong?
Guys, thanks so much for taking the time out of your day to view this video. It really does mean the world to me. And once again, if you like this video, please make sure to hit that like button. And if you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button as well for more new movie-related content weekly. Now, if you happen to see this movie, if you loved it, if you hated it, let me know what you thought about it down below in the comment section. I look forward to reading and responding to all of your comments as always. But with that being said, that's pretty much all the time that I have for you guys today. As always, be on the lookout for more new content shortly. And, yeah, I should probably get back to work, right? Until next time, I'm Dempsey Pilot. Take care.